All right, London, are we well? Fantastic. You seem like a lovely bunch. I'm going to start out with a very personal fact, and that is that I'm a test tube baby. Yeah. Hard to imagine, isn't it? All of this was once intentional. Just goes to show we're not all designer babies. Some of us are very much better described as knockoffs. But I do worry about bringing this up on stage because, infertility is a very serious topic, and there may be people, struggling to conceive themselves and maybe considering IVF as an option, and then they'll see me. And think maybe we should just adopt. I also worry that it makes me seem more interesting than I am. Being grown in a lab sounds very cool, but all it really means is my conception was relatively sexist and a little bit messy, which is how I've lived my life since then. So, start as you mean to go on, I guess. But I wouldn't say that's the biggest downside. The biggest downside for me is the religious opposition to my very existence. That's not the punchline. You see, the Catholic Church believes that the ability to have kids without sex is wrong, which I find an interesting take given Jesus. You know what I mean? Mary and Joseph do it, it's the Messiah. Anyone else does it, it's against natural law. I don't think that's fair. I mean, obviously I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, because that would be ridiculous. But, there are very obvious similarities. There's the relatively immaculate conception, but also my dad used to be a joiner, which is basically a carpenter. So I'm like the Jesus you get if you'd order him off Wish, superficially similar. Functionally inferior, but it all works. So I thought I'd use this set tonight to tell you some facts about test tube babies. Are we all up for that? Fantastic. So first one is, despite the name, we're not actually grown in tubes. I realise I'm not the best person to tell you that. Fully understand that I look like I stayed in mine just a bit too long. Maybe a better person to tell you would be my twin sister, because she's much more of a petri dish sort of a shape. Yeah, she doesn't like that one. Second fact is it's actually quite edgy. Up until about 10 years ago, IVF was illegal in Costa Rica. Now, to put that in perspective, all drugs were legalized for personal use 30 years previously. So for a time, I was harder than heroin, despite appearances. Third fact is, according to a study that came out in 2015, people conceived via IVF have higher levels of early adulthood clinical depression than people conceive naturally. Never said there were fun facts. But the reason I bring this up is the people who carried out the study, they were really confused. They didn't see what the link between the two things was. But I think it's very straightforward, because you see, early adulthood is about the time as a test tube baby that you realize that somewhere out there you have a receipt. That sounds fine, but what that means is I have to worry about whether or not I'm a disappointment with the full knowledge that I cost about the same as a second-hand hatchback, Means I'm like a Vauxhall Astra who feels immense guilt every time the check engine light comes on. It's not ideal. Does raise some interesting questions, though. Would I be less anxious if I'd gone for my dad, because then at least I'd be tax deductible? Yeah. Ring up the HMRC. It wasn't just a fertility treatment; it was a recruitment scheme. But not sure if that would work. At least he got his part for 2-for-1 deal, which is great because he's from Yorkshire. So he would have been absolutely furious if he missed out on the chance for a bargain. Now, as a Yorkshire person, I've developed a theory about Yorkshire folk over the years. I believe we all have perfect pitch, but we'll never tell anyone because that is the mark of just a tremendous bell end. So what we do instead is we give you the tones of our non-verbal reactions. This is why when someone from Yorkshire laughs, they go, ha 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 ha, E. Carry on with the hard-to-believe facts. I've got a girlfriend. Yeah. That's not even the hard to believe it, because she finds me as sexually attractive as Chris Hemsworth. Oh, yeah. And I know you're thinking she's not blind, but she is asexual, so neither of us really do it for her, I'll be honest. If you were to ask her, she'd probably tell you that I find Chris Hemsworth more attractive than she does, because apparently I give off strong bi vibes. Not sure what she got that idea from, but I reckon she's been talking to my ex. Not sure what he's told her, but must have been convincing. But that got me thinking about sort of the vibes we give off, because, it's very important. Before I met her, I used to really struggle with dating. One time I took a girl to York. First place we went to was the Shambles, which turned out to be quite prescient because the whole thing was a disaster. Now, I partially put the blame on myself because I was quite nervous, but I mainly blame her because the first thing that she did when we got there was to buy a sword. I don't know about you, London, but when I go on a date and I think I need to buy protection, very different connotations. But then I was worrying. I was like, what have I done in such a short time to make her think that she needs to buy an actual weapon within minutes of meeting me? And then I realised when I was messaging her, I mentioned I like a bit of role play, and she took one look at me and assumed that meant LARPing. So be specific, I guess.